Normally I hate PPTs, but maybe somebody in my team thought that I stray far. So they have made some kind of framework for me to speak. So I will try to probably stick to it. Okay, we have been maintaining lead in the C stuff since about a decade. I remember in 1998, we were talking of bridging the digital divide. So we made a society called Setu. So Setu meant two things, and it is 15 years ago. So Setu is one is bridge between various segments of society. And Setu also in Marathi, they said it means Sevetun Samadhan. So electronic Sevetun Samadhan. So focus on e-transaction, focus on front end at the collector office is going electronic. Because many bad things happen when a neutral front end is not there. When citizens have to meet a lot of government guys, so it's not a very pleasant interaction. So that is where a neutral private sector run, computer run front end called Setu. So this was thought of 15 years ago. So that has resulted in, and also having dynamic secretaries like Mr. Ajay Bhushan Pandey and many others in between. So that has resulted in having a good foundation, state maintaining its leadership role in various reports prepared by various third-party agencies. And right from 98, 99, we have been winning a lot of awards in e-governance, various departments, transport, finance, so many others. So we were counting awards last month, about 2 months back. So we reached 55. So we could count up to 55. And I think 2 months ago, CNBC awards, so that was our 56th. So where we proudly said up tak 56. So now we have crossed 56, probably 57 also. I think it's about 60 now. That's not the end of the story. That's just the beginning. As Chief Secretary said, e-governance has been very personality driven. Probably it's in the nature of e-governance projects. You get a good team leader in some department in IT, but mainly in department. So in department, you need a champion who looks positively at IT, either a minister or a bureaucrat. And then those projects come up. Many times the teams changes, the projects basically fade away. So to systematize, to internalize the changes, it is essential to have a good policy framework, a legal framework in place, capacity building, so expanding from the leader to everybody in the department, then a very systematic funding framework, so that funding does not dry up. Institutional framework, a lot of committees, organizations, then core e-governance common infra. So till now, 3 pillars which have been talked about are state data centers, the SWAN network, and basically the source state data center, the distribution channel, the SWAN network, and at the point of the retail network, the CSCs. Now, today I will talk about many more components of the core infra. Then statewide projects. I will come back to it. So we have been focusing quite a bit on UID. We'll come back to it in details. SDC, SWAN, CSC, SSDG, District E-Office, E-Procurement. Yeah, come back to this. And a lot of other departments. Courts, especially in Maharashtra, we have in last 3-4 years, Chief Justices who have been very, very e-savvy. Employment exchanges recently went electronic. Police projects are coming up, land recalls, transport. Panchayati Raj project is very important. They have resulted in 25,000 e-PRA centers, Sangram centers across the state. MIDC has been doing quite a bit of stuff, and agriculture. So now let's come to nitty-gritty. On the policy side, the IT policy is mainly on basically tax breaks, etc. for the IT sector. It's not typical e-gov projects. And Mumbai being the financial capital of the country, it did attract a lot of IT investments. So we have all the big names in Mumbai or Thane or Navi Mumbai. Pune also came up as a good center. Now Pune is basically the animation hub of the country, the games hub of the country. So last year we came up with e-governance policy about 1.5 years ago. It really focuses on fundamentals. It puts eGov at the focus of projects in every department. It talks about eGov standards. It talks about using UID rather than smart cards. A lot of emphasis on Marathi usage. It says that homepage of every website in Maharashtra should open up in Marathi. English could be second optional language. And we are ensuring that. Now 60–70% of the websites in Maharashtra, including maharashtra.gov.in, etc., when you open the homepage, comes up in Marathi. It comes up in Unicode. So you don't have to load fonts and all that stuff. Then a mandatory budget head in every department. So that has been created. Secretaries can do reappropriation at their own into those budget heads. And a lot of money is coming from Government of India also. A lot of projects go into PPP mode. So no department in the state can say that they are short of funds for running any IT project. In IT, we just need ideas. The money is not a problem anymore. Then HR, we are really focusing on HR in capacity building. We'll come back to it a little bit later. And in IT Act, there are a lot of rules, etc., notifications which need to be issued. So one by one, we have been issuing those notifications. Critical infra notification, so that if somebody hacks into any of the government stuff, they can go 7 years into jail, all that stuff. And electronic service delivery rules. IT Act basically made digital signature equivalent to ink signature, but coming up with all these rules basically makes it easier. I'm also under IT Act, Section 43, 46, 66, etc., adjudicating officer. And about 2 months ago, I came up with more than a dozen judgments on cyber frauds. A lot of net banking frauds are happening, credit card frauds, ATM frauds, they are happening. So we have been passing many really path-breaking orders. And also on privacy laws. In the country at the moment, there is only one judgment on privacy issues. I wrote that judgment a year ago. That was upheld by Delhi High Court. And that judgment basically says the wife or the husband, vice versa, they cannot look into each other's emails. They can't even pick up the phone and see the last dialed numbers. So it's an extremist judgment, but so we do a lot of stuff. So that is on the policy side. I see a lot of our partners here. A lot of IT projects go under PPP mode. So where basically government does not spend anything, the project comes up and the vendor gets money from the citizens. So in transport, for example, almost all of us here will be carrying some kind of driving license. Now the Vahan and Sarthi in Maharashtra is practically, software is by NIC, but it's under PPP mode. The fees you pay, it goes into basically the vendor's account and he is giving you the smart card and all that stuff. Now we set up a joint venture with TCS called Maha Online. Now that is really driving a lot of IT projects in the state, and especially transaction based. Then we have an MOU with Jashda for training activities, with CDAC Pune for a lot of localization. So I have a team of 11 people from CDAC who are day and night working on Marathi issues. We use Sakal Marathi font across the applications. It works well on all kind of Windows platforms, including Windows 8. It works well on iPads, works well on all kind of Android versions, and so on. So we are doing really a lot of stuff with CDAC. And then I see Mr. Tyagi from CSC SPV here. We signed a MOU with CSC SPV. So, and I have been typically telling all the CSC operators that not more than 1/3 of your income should come from G2C. In any civilized society, G2C should go down, basically almost approaching zero, and B2C should come up. This MyBab culture of government doing everything, government giving all kind of certificates, that must give way to very vibrant retail shops, basically providing B2C, C2C kind of services. So with CSC, SPV, practically it opens up about 100 B2C kind of things, mobile recharge, DTH recharge, your money transfer kind of thing, and so on, utility payments. So this collaboration with CSC, SPV is really opening up B2C across the villages. So that's very important for us. Then the right hand top side, that's really very, very important to us. And that's where I have been really focusing on last 4 or 5 months on standardization. Now you see your name. Now if you open up your wallet and you open up your lot of cards, you will see your name spelled very differently in your ration card, in your driving license, in your other kind of cards, credit cards. So even the name we have not been able to standardize. Even the name of districts we have not been able to standardize. We were trying to utilize ration card PDS data for our health scheme. Our health department came up with a scheme that Rajiv Gandhi Arogya Bima Yojana, that each family can get practically health insurance up to 1 lakh rupees. They can get surgeries, etc. done. So the data from ration card had to be imported into the health department. When we went through the database, even the district Solapur was spelled in bloody 20 ways. So you can't, the data is useless. So unless you have very standardized databases of village names, district names, how the name is spelled, how the gender is gender MFT, MFO, 012. So if different databases are maintaining different values, the whole thing becomes non-interoperable. So we are really focusing on that. Across 80-90% of the software, we have now ensured that all the databases can speak to one another. On the same thing, databases speaking to one another is good for the government, but it can be really bad for the citizen. Government should not really know too much about the citizens, frankly. I'm an advocate of privacy issues. I told you I have passed a really path-breaking judgment on privacy. And unfortunately, at the same time, I am supervising 2 projects, Mumbai CCTV and UID, which are not really so good for citizens' privacy. Because UID is enabling databases to speak to one another. It can be a very good thing for the government, for fraud control, for example. Now we are seeding UID into various databases, and in e-transactions I'm talking about smart forms, that somebody goes to a CSC, gives his UID number, his name, address, photo, etc. come up. Then he says, I want an income certificate of 20,000 rupees per annum. But at the back end, the databases talk to one another. If MSCB database, electricity database is seeded with UID, that pops up, throwing an alert that this guy's electricity bill per month is 2,000 rupees. How the hell he can claim to be having an income of 20,000 per annum? So databases talking to one another makes things smart on the government side, slightly bad for the citizen. Anyway, so we are making databases talk to one another, and the fundamentals behind it is 2. 1, eGov standards, and second, seeding every database with UID. And second is localization. We still have too many fonts, actually hundreds of fonts. Long back, I was in Election Commission of India in 2004, 5, 6, etc. Unicode was just coming up. So I attempted to convert, and we had the voter list in 15 languages. So we tried to convert the entire country's voter list into a standard superset kind of database and in Unicode. And I found in Hindi Hindi is used across 15, 16 states. Hindi, we had more than 300 fonts in the voter list. So it was a huge effort. Now in Marathi, we have more than 5, 6 very popular fonts. So which private fellows, which government fellows all across, they use all these 5, 6 fonts. There are actually 30, 40 fonts floating around, but 5, 6 fonts make up of 90, 95% of the market. So getting them into Unicode is quite a challenge. But now almost all databases of Maharashtra government, almost all websites of Maharashtra government, they are in Unicode. I'm not saying Unicode compliant. They are in actual Unicode. So that's very important. And especially when more and more kind of devices are coming up. Now we are moving away from desktops. About 4 months ago, in our country, a critical thing happened. The internet traffic over mobile phones, it crossed over from the internet traffic on desktops. Today, probably 60% of the internet is seen over mobiles rather than on desktops. So the things have changed. So unless you are in Unicode, all your tablets, iPads, Samsung tablets, your Blackberries and iPhones, they won't show Marathi properly. So having Unicode is important, and we are ensuring that. Now WCAG, that's very important. And today also there is it's an important day for accessibility. Today is Global Accessibility Awareness Day. So 9th May is called Accessibility Awareness Day. On the computer, what does accessibility mean? So if somebody is blind, how does he use your website? So if you are a developer or if you are a vendor making website for Maharashtra government, so please sit in front of the desktop, shut down the monitor, because the blind fellow cannot see the monitor. So please shut down the monitor. Now to use mouse, you need to see the cursor position on the desktop. The blind fellow cannot see that. Please remove the mouse. So what remains? The CPU and the keyboard attached to it. Maybe you can attach speaker phones or headphones. Now use your website. Try to read what is on the web page. Try to listen to it. Try to do the input using keyboards. So how do you get the output? The monitor is off. Printer is practically off. You cannot see. So how do you get to the output? So that's what we are doing. It's a fantastic thing. Very, very few people in the country are attempting to do this. Though the law says we have disabilities laws in the country, we have guidelines on WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, nobody is following it. Nobody in Government of India, no mission mode of Government of India. This is absolutely violative. So unless the courts take up, send a few people to jail, this is not going to happen. In US, if you don't follow rules 504, you go to jail. It's as simple. In India, it is total violation. And since today is Accessibility Awareness Day, I am speaking a bit more detailed about it. What we are ensuring is all our websites, they can be used by blind people, and in a day or two you will see a newer version of maharashtra.gov.in. I wanted to launch it today but got stuck up in some work yesterday. So probably tomorrow we are going to launch that. Even present website of Maharashtra.gov.in is almost level A compliant. So tomorrow we may launch a site double A compliant, which no website in the country is. So following WCAG guidelines is important, and there is another component to it which is called web responsiveness, which practically means your website should not have a footer saying best viewed in IE this particular resolution. Now device sizes vary from 4-inch smartphones to 27-inch screens. Resolutions differ, operating systems differ, browsers differ. The orientation differ. Sometimes you hold your iPad in landscape, sometimes in portrait mode. So the website has to really look and feel at the optimal across the devices. So when you see on desktop, you could have more photographs, more navigation bars. When you see the same website on your iPhone or any other smartphone or tablet, photographs could drop out, navigation could be different. So we are trying to ensure that. So that's important. Then to have, basically to embed IT, to make it independent of the individuals, it is important to have more and more oversight committees, to involve more and more people in all these things. So we have actually a cabinet subcommittee in which 6-7 ministers are there. We almost have quarterly meetings and they take stock of what is happening. For all IT projects of all departments above 5 crores, we have a high-powered committee chaired by Chief Secretary. So we meet almost every 10-15 days, clear a lot of projects and take stock of existing projects. Then between 10 lakhs to 5 crores, we have project implementation committees headed by secretaries of those departments, in which my team, DIT team, NIC team, finance team, industry team, etc., outside experts, they participate and clear those projects and take periodic review of those projects. So this system of PIC committees, HPC committees, that is ensuring that projects sustain beyond individuals. That is very, very important. As I started by saying, saying that we started 15 years ago with Setu centers, which are nothing but basically service delivery centers at collector offices. Then we opened these Setu centers at taluka levels. There are 400 out of those centers. We have about 10,000 CSCs, citizen service centers, and we have 25,000 Gram Panchayat centers now. So number wise, out of 110 lakh centers across the country, 35,000. That means 1/3 of them are presently in Maharashtra. So key certificates, which is basically income certificates, caste certificates, date of birth, death certificates, and all this stuff. Your Satbara. So we have tried to standardize across the state. A year ago, the situation was that we had, for example, for Vayacha Dakhla, for citizens' age proof, we had 300 kind of formats across the state. Now, what does this certificate has? It has an input form. There are frequent jokes about government forms being very tough, being in triplicate. That's actually true. Where only 4 pieces of information is necessary, we ask for 50 pieces of information. So we had long forms, and forms are different across the state. So form is different. Annexures, what kind of documents you are asking along with that. So huge list. Each form you ask for 10 annexures, 15 kind of attachments. So in BPR, what is being happening? The form is being simplified. Number of attachments is being reduced. What is third thing? How do you pay the fees? What is the fees along with that form? Best is having a 0 fees. Otherwise, how do you pay the fees? Very easily. Many forms say bank challans. Now how do you get a bank challan? You go to a taluka treasury bank. So then what's the fun in having a taluka center at the village level? If for fees for bank challan, you have to go to taluka level. So we are saying you should be able to pay the fees in cash at the CSC. Then the approval process. For approval, why should it go to 10 people? Can't it go to 4 people? Why should it go to district? Can't that power be delegated to taluka? And why should it even go to taluka? If we are saying the citizen can go to his village center, get the service across the counter, the village officer should be empowered to basically sign those documents. So this is what Anna Hazare calls Lokshahi, decentralization. So what does Lokshahi mean? Everything happens at the village level. And the final 5th thing is the output. So how do you get the output? Now different methods of getting the output. For output, let us say a driving license or your vehicle registration or a passport. Do you again have to go to government office? Or can you get it couriered home? So do you pay 50 rupees extra and the courier comes to your home? So that's better. Much better is getting a digitally signed thing which comes to your email box. So all these 5 components we are doing BPR. So for these 16 major certificates which make up 80% of the volumes, we have done the BPRs. Last year we did about 12.53 crore e-transactions. Now is it a good thing or a bad thing? I have been, while in DIT people are talking of lot of e-transactions. They are saying we will evaluate your performance, state performance on the number of e-transactions you do. So in a all state meeting in Hyderabad last month, I said I have a different definition of e-transaction. It should stand for eliminated transaction. So the best government is which works minimal, which sticks to a very fewer areas in citizens' life. So how do you reach eliminated transactions? I see a lot of consultants sitting here from my team. So let's make it a bit interactive. So any 2-3 examples of eliminated transactions. Naveen, Collector Varda is here. So rather than e-transaction, how do we go to eliminate e-transaction? I will give a hint. Till last year, during admission season, the rule was in 11th, for admission you need to give domicile certificate. So with many collectors got lot of accolades that they set up camps to give certificates on the spot in 1 day, 2 day. Then somebody at the Mantralaya level said, why the hell do we really need this? If a kid has passed his 10th exam from Maharashtra, let's do away with domicile. So the e-transaction got converted into eliminated transaction. Only the kids who were joining in 11th in Maharashtra, after doing 10th anywhere else, anyway they have to come with a migration certificate and all that stuff. So this was eliminated. So more and more departments, I see a lot of people from many departments. So rather than e-transaction, we should go one step ahead. We should go eliminated transaction. So just eliminate all those forms which are needed. Or in the meanwhile, there is another method on the parallel setup, online transactions. Citizen does not have to come to even the CSC center, sitting at home or cyber cafe. They fill up forms, upload them, scan them, and get back, make payments through payment gateways, and get digitally signed certificates in their emails. Or if it is utility payment, etc., they don't have to go stand in line. Just make the payment from ATMs, from online web portals and all that stuff. So that is our focus. Have more and more citizen centers, have more and more online services, have more and more eliminated services, so that does not happen. Utility payments, practically 100% should go on that path. So that's the focus area here. So UID, Mr. Ajay Bhushan also spoke about it. So May end, we'll cross Andhra in sheer numbers. DBT, direct bank transfer. And Maharashtra, since many years, since our treasuries went electronic 4 or 5 years back, we have been doing direct bank transfers since 4 or 5 years. Now our treasuries are practically 95% checkless. There are no checks. And I think very soon, I see my friends from treasury there, I think next 1-2 months, they can practically claim that we have eliminated checks all across Maharashtra. So payments from treasury, even today it's 95% true. Payments from treasury to beneficiaries like student scholarships or old age pensions, to government employees, salaries or pensions, to vendors getting contractor bills, all to DDOs, so G2G transactions. So they are happening through ECS or RTGS. Similarly, taxes coming into Maharashtra government, more than 80% are coming through electronic channels. Last year, entire 55,000 crores of sale tax, it came through net banking. No checks, no DD, no cash, only net banking. More than 10,000 crores of property transactions, almost 4,000 crores of your car registration money. It is all coming through net banking channels. So that changes the face of treasuries, that changes the whole reconciliation stuff. Rather than in months, it happens on T+1 basis. RTGS, it happens basically 3 times a day. So that changes the game. And if the citizen to pay his taxes or to get payments out of the government, they get it sitting at home and nothing like it. So that's a game changer. Now in DBT linked to UID, what is happening is we seed bank accounts with UID. So rather than pushing money into bank account, we can push money into UID numbers. So to push money, for example, a scholarship on old age pension, I need not know even the bank account of the fellow. If I know his UID number, I can push that money into that account. So that's what is called Aadhaar Payment Bridge, APB linked direct bank transfers. But DPT has a slightly higher connotation that rather than in kind, you get the subsidy in cash. So scholarships are always in basically money flowing into the bank. That's not a major issue. Now the kerosene subsidy or now LPG subsidy. LPG subsidy to all of us sitting here, maybe 3 months down the line, that's going to happen. That even the first 9 cylinders will have to pay full 1,000 rupees, and subsidy component for those nine cylinders will come into our bank accounts. So we have to give our bank account number and UID number to the LPG distributor. So the subsidy will be replaced by, subsidy is sort of in kind, will be replaced by money transfer coming into your banks. And that has a dramatic impact. Now we have been doing seeding of Aadhaar into various schemes. In Aurangabad, under the LASA project, 18,000 old age beneficiaries we seeded with UID. Only 13,000 people came up, rest 5,000 were dummy. So 30% saving. So just like there is that golden ratio, Fibonacci ratio in mathematics, I call it a rotten ratio in basically various subsidies. And unfortunately, it is hovering around 30%, 20%. Scheme after scheme. You seed it with UID, 20% fellows just seem to vanish. So we give subsidies of 3 lakh crores per annum across the country. Majorly it is fertilizer subsidy, your kerosene, diesel subsidies and all that stuff. And then a few other subsidies. And 20% saving, it translates to huge savings which can result in basically changing the face of the country. We can have much better roads, much better metros. Just imagine 40,000 crores per annum saving, and practically 10,000 crores of infra can change the face of Mumbai. Just imagine 40,000 crores saving at least year after year just by seeding every subsidy scheme with UID, just to weed out the dummy numbers. So it's dramatic. Another thing what UID is doing is financial inclusion. Very, very few people in this country have bank accounts. There are very, very few bank branches in the country. There are extremely, extremely few ATMs in the country. We have 2 lakh cities and 6 lakh villages in this country, and the number of places with ATMs runs into just tens of thousands. So what is happening under UID is, or under DBT scheme is, everybody is opening bank accounts. A circular of RBI of 10 December 2012 says Aadhaar letter is equivalent to your proof of identity, proof of address. That's a game changer. Banks are being forced to open bank accounts of every Indian. Then after bank account, money should flow into your bank accounts. That's what DBT does. Then you should be able to withdraw your money. So more physical bank branches, more ATMs, and more business correspondents. Now, banks have given orders of practically more than 1 lakh ATMs across the country. Those ATMs are being put in place. So that's going to be quite a game changer. Opening of bank accounts, pushing money into bank accounts, being able to withdraw your money near your home. So that's what the UID is doing. Apart from seeding data bases, making them talk to one another, making them smart databases, weeding out duplicate names, and third and most critical benefit, basically having a electronic money based economy rather than cash based economic system. You can go through this data. We have a UID Innovation Center. All of you are welcome to see it. It's next to my room, 5th floor on XC Mantralaya. And we are doing real great stuff there, deduplicating databases. And in fact, one idea came from Ajay Bhushan Pandey sir here. We are seeding every citizen's UID data with their bank account and then pushing 1 rupee into it. So we tell our bankers, please push 1 rupee into this big list. And this goes to banks servers. It goes into at the back end NPCI mapper. So that entire 1 rupee transaction gets complete. 5-10% bounce back in first instance. Then we do all those corrections. And then this data is available to all other departments for giving more sums of money. Other departments, social justice can push blindly their scholarship into these accounts because money has been tested, 1 rupee has been tested, the account is seeded, bank account is there, Aadhaar is there, person's name is there, everything is tested. It's on the NPCI mapper. So that's great. Then AUA, we have set up our own online authentication unit. So in the state, what we have done is, I'm copying the entire UID database from Bangalore, the demographic data plus the photographs of citizens. But I am not downloading fingerprints and iris. So I am immune from data losses in that sense. I'm not unduly worried. So I'm holding the data which is already in public domain. And authentication happens online. I have spoken about it quite a few forums that having smart cards is one of the dumbest ideas. When our currency notes can be very easily replicated, the smart cards can be very easily replicated. You can put a magnetic strip or a chip or RFID into it. So it makes it unnecessarily complicated. The whole UID concept is there is no card, it is just a number. You can tattoo the whole number into your arm, carry it around, or remember it in your head. And the authentication has to be online. That's the only way. Otherwise, UID card is simply not there. Whatever piece of letter comes at your home can be easily made on the computer. That's useless. So the only way of authentication is online authentication, server-based authentication. So we have our own system, all departments can dip into it, and that's also working quite great. So we are testing it out at registration counters, property registration counters, so that buyer and seller, they will have to put their fingerprint and get online authentication, so that Benami transactions can stop and other stuff. Other projects, I will skip this slide because throughout next 2 days, many departments will speak about it. We have been focusing on capacity building of everybody. So this workshop is a part of that entire effort. We are training our vendors, we are training our consultants, government officers, citizens, and all of you are welcome to go to this website, egovtraining.maharashtra.gov.in. We have the one and only course, online course on e-governance in the country. So it's an objective exam, subjective exam followed by interview, and it's a good experience. So you are welcome to go to this website and learn a lot about e-governance. Maybe you can all participate in this, maybe get certified. And if you pass it with distinction, we also give along with certificate 2,500 rupees cash. We don't give cash, we do RTGS. So all of you are welcome to do this. And now the last 2 slides. We are doing a lot of back-end systems, and we have a friend from DOT here. He will be very happy to know that last week our data center, we have gone IPv6. I was 4 years ago a member of IPv6 committee at the center also. So we are the first state data center in the country to go IPv6 practically 2 days back. Last year we took our own ASN number, IPv4 and IPv6 addresses from EPNIC. So we were the first state government in the country to have our own IPv4, IPv6 block. Then in fact, the National Internet Registry, which allots IPv4, v6 in the country, that's the most critical piece of internet infra in the country, that we could wrest from Australians. So we are now running National Internet Registry from India, and my team wrote the software for that. So it's a national level project we did, and it is running from our Mumbai State Data Center. So the entire country's telecom companies, other companies, universities, individuals, they are getting these addresses from servers running in my state data center. And last week we went IPv6 end-to-end. End-to-end means I have 3 ISPs coming into my data center: MTNL, Tata's, and National Knowledge Network line. We tested on all 3. Then it comes to our Cisco router running BGP. So it was tested on that. Then it went through our firewalls. Then it touches our VMware cloud. So that works on this IPv6 address. Now for citizens to remember my website, IPv6 number is impossible. So the DNS entry and the .in registry servers, that was made. So the DNS server in my data center run by Wipro, that entry was made. So end to end it has been tested. We have not left a single piece of the puzzle, and it tested well. So we last week became the first website in the country, of first web portal and first state data center to go fully on v6. We are running 2 clouds in our state data center. I spent about 2 crore rupees in purchasing Microsoft and VMware cloud. And in last 1 year, we have saved 50 crores in new server purchasing across our departments. We spent 2 crores, saved 50 crores. So everything goes on virtual machines. I don't allot anybody a physical server. They go on the cloud, private cloud. So we are now expanding, making a hybrid and expanding into private cloud of BSNL. So that when a peak comes, I can push data onto the BSNL major cloud. Then Swan, basically, we are using more and more for video conferencing. We are now also moving to desktop-based video conference, Microsoft Link and Skype and all that stuff, even in colds. Even this fellow who died, Ajmal Kasab, his lot of evidence happened over video conference. So our courts have been using video conference quite a bit. So within Maharashtra government, we are focusing quite a bit on video conference. And Maharashtra luckily has very good connectivity. And connectivity in general is very important now. Good connectivity, good broadband, it is said can add 1 or 2% of the GDP. So rather than having more and more factories, you probably can put more bandwidth and get equal results. So good broadband is very important for the businessmen, for the industry, for the citizens. Luckily, Maharashtra cities are very well placed. Mumbai has more than 24 very robust, healthy ISPs. Pune has already gone on 4G. Mumbai 4G is getting rolled out in next 2-3 months by Reliance. So Pune went through Airtel route. We have a lot of fiber across the state. So talukas, except few talukas in Sindhudurg, Ratnagiri district, and a few on the Gadchiroli side, they have good fiber connectivity. We recently signed an MOU with Department of Telecom for NOFN, National Optic Fiber. So hopefully in a year's time, 100 MB fiber will go to all the village panchayats in the state. So generally we are well placed, except a few remote areas. So e-office, as all are aware, we had very bad fire in Mantralia last year, 21st June, so which destroyed lot of paper on top 3 floors. So thereafter, we thought that we will go paperless, and we talked to NIC. The e-office is getting rolled out quite beautifully. My whole office has gone paperless, and Sindhudur collector is here. He has made his collector office, all Tehsil office is paperless. Probably he will speak about it in some later session. Health department has gone paperless. So we are focusing quite a bit on e-office. Probably there will be a different session on it. So, and e-tendering. Now we have made tenders more than 10 lakh rupees purely on e-tendering. This is also dramatic. Our experience has been that it increases the number of vendors from practically average of 3-4 to 5-6. And also it depresses the rates by 3-4%. And in last 1 year, tenders worth about 30,000 crores have been awarded on this. So you can do your calculation. So it is quite a good system. In my state data center, we have set up basically a state data center chart, and where everything is basically as a service. SMS gateway as a service, payment gateway as a service, video conferencing as a service, virtual machines as a service, extra RAM, CPU as a service. And this slide you see is thinking as a service, TaaS. So that's a new concept I'm talking about. Now many departments, they are outsourcing their even the thinking process. How to think on e-governance, how to think on IT. So we have created a team of consultants from all major 5-6 firms, KPMG, EY, PwC, Accenture, etc. So these young boys and girls, many of them MBAs and from IITs and all that stuff. So they go to various districts, various departments, and they're helping the collectors and the department secretaries think about IT projects. So here it is both a two-edged weapon. This is proving to be too good a tool, very good tool. But I am also afraid that department capacity should not get drained out. They should be doing their own thinking and not even outsource the thinking. So thinking as a service, good to some extent, essential to some extent, but should not become 100% outsourced. So that is this experiment which is doing well. So we are maintaining dashboards, checking a lot of parameters. So that's about it. You can see my department website at it.maharashtra.gov. We have a very active Facebook page. So we get a lot of brickbats and good comments also. That's my official email ID. So Gmail, Facebook, Skype, you can connect me at this email. And I wrote a paper called eGov 0.0 about a year ago. I was sitting in a conference in Ahmedabad about a year and a half back in a conference called eGov 2.0. And I said, let's talk about fundamentals about 0.0. So this paper is quite dramatic. It's very critical of e-governance projects, but also tells about positive aspects. So that is on my personal website, ilovemaths.com/egov.pdf. If you have the time, please go through it. So I will stop here. I know I have overshot my time and kept you away from a tea break, but I thought it's very important that we basically set up this whole theme, that this is what we are doing, this is the way we are going, and I see more of basically family gathering here, only very few friends from outside the state. Most of my consulting team, departments from officers who we very often interact with, all our partners from industry who supply us hardware, software, other solutions from the financial sector. So it's like an extended family. So I thought I will take this opportunity to talk about these ideas. And later sessions, I have requested Ravi to be more interactive. So after this tea break, we'll have panel discussions and more interactive sessions. Maybe half of it will be things from the dais and half of the things must come from your side. Thank you so much.